Hello, we're going to try something a little bit new. This is sort of a rebranding. We have our typical Sunday meetings every Sunday in the morning, and that will be professional. Also, the Facebook page, Twitter page, website, and a new book, in addition to online certification courses by Yes California, will be coming in the next few weeks. All of those will maintain the corporate image that we have drafted and created over the last couple of years, since at least 2015. We also wanted to, though, expand our marketing base. So the point of Yes California after Trump lost the 2020 election, whatever you believe, after 2020 election, was to point out the relevancy of the conversation about California becoming independent. However you interpret that, to whatever degree that you're comfortable with, that was the idea. We wanted to elevate the relevance and authority of the conversation by normalizing it. And we're going to continue to do that. We've had a lot of good activities and contacts we've made recently, and the professional image has always worked for us. However, we want to start reaching out to new people. And what I've noticed recently is that there's a big market for lack of a better phrase, cursing and off-color jokes and humor and silliness, and just, having a good time on top of high-level intellectual conversation. And it's largely what we do all the time in the back. We don't really show it because we were so concerned about the professional image, but we've kind of always...
You can't make me.
Yes, exactly. So like that. Exactly like that, just, popping off and saying stuff and having fun and a good time. And I've always said, yes, it's business and we got to run it like a business and it's got to be professional. But the point is to have jokes and a good time. Activism is supposed to be mostly fun. The work is what you do to make it successful, but it should be amusing. We're not going to have people in gorilla face. I was horrified that happened and disgusted that was allowed in California with not much criticism. But here's the idea. We're going to start trying to have more open, fun, come-as-you-are conversations every Tuesday evening. We're going to try to market it on new platforms to new folks. We're going to try to reach out to new demographics and contact everybody. And we're just basically going to tone it down a little bit. Sunday and the rest of everything we've done will continue the high-level professionalism. But this is going to start to be a different product. So I'm going to do the commercial, and then we're going to start doing this, but easing into it. And I know that seems a little tough, but,
Oh, easing into it, I just took a huge rip.
So, welcome to that's perfect. A new episode of CaliFUNia. That is a working title. This is brought to you by the Yes California organization. We are dedicated to the concept of California acting more like a nation and possibly being fully independent from America. I myself am a hardcore committed secessionist, as much as that dismays my mom and anybody else you ever go out on a date with. They're like, really? Are you that? And you're like, yeah, I drank the Kool-Aid and I like it. I keep making new bottles, pitchers of Kool-Aid every night. So we're going to start trying to have fun, easygoing, good times, popular format Tuesday evening meetings, the same intense organization, corporate policy, level of thinking, and just to basically the administration and acumen is going to be at that level. But we want to start packaging it in a more friendly manner. So we're going to start doing that now. So right now we got some private chat comments. Yeah. So because we live in a free country where nobody's worried, thank God we don't live in China or Russia, right? Because there, people are worried about what they say, and they're afraid if they say something politically, they'll either be arrested or harassed by the government or not treated fairly. China's instituting this social credit score where they look at your internet traffic, by the way, that's being copied by American credit card corporations and instituted in the next few months. But basically, 2 years ago, with the help of Google, China invented some system where they look at what you search at and what you're into, and then based upon your interests, they'll start assigning a social credit score. That social credit score will go into everything, like access to universities, good public schools, anything you apply for in life. Right after your military honorable discharge and your education and your status and any degrees or excess, it's going to be social credit score. And I mean, how horrifying to have to live in China where they will look at what you say and they're not going to kill you, they're not going to imprison you, but they'll make life difficult for you, cut off access to jobs, promotions, ostracize you, make sure that you can just be basically a little bit financially hurt. And I just love the fact that we have nothing at all like that in California today. Right, guys?
Yeah. So this is really interesting because there's this show called Black Mirror, and in season 1, I know it's season 1 because when I saw it, there was only the one season. So it's somewhere in season 1. There's this whole concept, and this lady, I guess, I mean, she's going through it. It's rough. It's like a super pretty people's society, and she's pretty, but she's not one of the Ubers, right? And so because she's not one of the 1%, she's really struggling, and she's having a hard time, and she kind of snaps. And because she gets just a little bit temperamental with someone, they give her a dislike on her social media thing, and her score goes down, and now she ends up losing all sorts of friends and followers on the whole thing, and her points drop even further down to another category. And then everyone's like, oh geez, I don't want to be with this loser, look how horrible they're tanking, separate, right? And so her number just plummets down to nothing. This show was made that I want to say that was maybe 3-4 years ago that show, so it was probably more like 5 when they made it, right? That's really scary to think about. Here is this postmodern society, still apocalyptic in nature. I mean, it's very dark. It's and it's science fiction, right? But it does very much point out, this is kind of the way things are heading if we're not careful. And to see that could have happened and become a popular, successful thing, and still the message has gone unheeded, and someone decided they want to make that a reality. Oh, dear sweet baby in the manger, out in the barn with the donkeys and whatnot.
Yeah.
Crossing myself, even though I'm not Catholic.
Yeah. So, I mean, the reason that I bring that up is that some of the people on the show, and we're going to invite more people, are silent. And that's great because they can still comment and we'll post the comments. But there are people who are routinely involved in our discussions who will never publicly disclose themselves because of the same sort of backlash that's being pioneered in China and will soon come here to the shores of America, much like the Americans in World War II. I guess that was supposed to be more funny than I initially thought. Let's go right to interesting piece of news that came out today. And I'll post this.
I don't wear comfortable shoes. I refuse.
Oops, wrong. Sorry. Wrong video. Let me find
I
it.
don't wear shoes. I wear combat boots pretty much exclusively.
Do you? Is it more comfortable?
Oh, yeah. Way more comfortable. I mean, think about it. They're boots that are made for all purpose, all weather, all condition, all terrain, and meant to be worn for long periods of time without you just hating them.
I don't know, man. I think we're getting to the point where they're losing the ability to control the systems the way we think they would. New Hampshire, for instance, the Free State Project. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys are getting more and more people on board with seceding from the Union. Now, will that happen? I think it's highly unlikely. But what happens when you have the Free State Project saying, everybody come to New Hampshire, sign a pledge saying, we out? What happens when 80% of New Hampshire is like, yo, we out? And then what happens if there's like mass non-compliance with the federal government's laws? Right. The feds don't have enough people to go in and deal with, like, I think New Hampshire only has, like, 800,000 people in it?
Not many, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to check the population? But, I mean, how is the federal government
going to do streaming?
Block the highways or something?
Okay.
Like, what do you do? And it's not just New Hampshire, it's other, I mean, Texas. Mm-hmm. Texas has constantly pushed those buttons. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? You think Texas would ever get to that point?
Yeah, and for once, the playback is coming through clearly.
A lot of people think. And
is the audio coming in?
You're right. It's, to me, what they.
Oh yeah.
Just hypothetically speaking, yeah. If 2/3 of Texans voted in a referendum that we want to break away, it would be difficult as the U.S. lectures the world about self-determination. You know, what if they just start reading them the Declaration of Independence to them? And so, what part of this do you not agree with anymore? You know, and it would be important too to not have any, you know, no violence suggested, just to say, no, we're breaking away, so that if Washington starts ordering the Air Force to bomb them, it's going to be pretty clear cut what happened.
Right. So this is the thing, you know, people often say, oh, the government, the feds would never.
Can we pause it there for a second and talk about it in segments?
Yeah. So, yeah.
That right there is something we have been saying over and over and over and over and over. And I really actually love this podcast and this group. Part of me wondered why it ended up taking them so long, and we'll get there. But why it took so long to find the population of New Hampshire? Come on, folks, your Google game needs to be strong. Either that or get the numbers ahead of time. But they use pretty much all of our talking points that we have been saying for years and years.
All right, but break that down. What do you mean? I know what you mean, but walk it down to someone else. They don't have a clue. What is it that they said that you saw that picked up the show?
So before, I want to say like 5 years ago, right? 5.5 years ago or so, when we would talk with folks about independence, secession, self-determination, autonomy, right? A lot of the time, we got pretty much immediate blowback with, yeah, but what happens when the United States comes in and bombs the hell out of California? And my response had always been that, well, I think it would take a really unstable type thing to get violent and make it happen, and that's the only way that they could ever justify using any sort of military force. Otherwise, they have two options. If we do it right, they only have two options. One, let us go and continue to acknowledge self-determination as a human right, as laid out by the United Nations Entrance Charter, signed by so many countries, one of which includes the United States. Or they can go ahead and be monsters and look like monsters And in this modern day and age, everyone is going to know about it. Everyone is going to see it. And with us being like the tech hub and all of the port stuff, and you think they really want to just bomb it to oblivion, really? If they want it that bad, they're going to try and keep it as intact as possible, which is going to cost them a lot in resources and all of that. So ultimately, what's in their best interest is to not be a monster, let us go our way and fix ourselves and continue to be friends. And as our economy grows, what do you think happens when one neighbor prospers? It starts to spill over on the rest of the neighbors. And pretty soon the whole region is prospering. Oh, what's that? The United States is prospering now because California is doing so much better? Really? I mean, sure, I understand you folks who want America to be number one. We predicted back in the day that the USA would not continue to be number one for so much longer. Thanks to things done by Trump and then continued by Biden policies on the international level, right? Things with like NATO and pressuring the EU for NATO spending.
Yeah, but let's keep it
okay,
specifically about what he said, and then we'll go back to segment of the video just so we don't, lose any viewers and keep it online. So I heard the word self-determination. Yeah. That was specifically something that we had pointed out, you had pointed out for a long time, at least going back a year to 2 years, that the UN Charter says the right of self-determination of all peoples. America signed that charter, making it a legally binding treaty. Treaties are the supreme law of the land and supersede domestic law, according to, I believe, the Constitution, and right up to a reconformed Supreme Court hearing in the last decade. So when we hear Tim Pool and other people use the same word of a state has the right to go and America can't bomb them because America talks about freedom and self-determination, and this is what this means, that's literally our talking point. Is that, do you back me up on that, Jason, or do you feel differently?
That is perfectly correct. That is it. Unless, because, freedom of choice, right? America has a choice. They could decide to go all Stalin or all, Husseini kind of, maneuver about it. Sure, they could gas California because America actually does have one of the world's largest stockpiles of chemical weapons and biological. They could unleash it. Yes, true. Do you really think they would on what they consider to be valuable home soil, no less, let alone their own home soil? I mean, yeah, I honestly think that it would take us being violent in our movement and illegal, or the commander-in-chief just being absolutely so ridiculously insane and the military somehow deciding to follow, which, as we've seen with all of the General Milley reports, my prediction seems to hold true, right? Like, even Milley was like, yeah, no, guys, gals, we got protocol. Remember the protocol. Don't just go off just because some nut job sits in the Oval Office and says, push the goddamn button.
Yeah. All right, let's take another little bit of listen of this show, and we'll... No, hey, put the camera on, Jason. If you're willing.
I'm actually masking up to go down for a smoke.
Oh.
I'll put it on in a minute.
And I'm like, that would make people more supportive of secession.
Right.
They would see the aggressor being the federal government going in and rounding people up. They'd see crying babies and screaming women and be like, this is crazy. Like they didn't even do anything. And I think more and more people would actually it's not dissimilar from the American Civil War with Fort Sumter. When the fighting broke out, I think it was 7 other states that were like, whoa, that's crazy, we're out. And then word traveled way slower. In the era of 4th and 5th generational warfare, you got to have propaganda on your side, which means often, you want to be the victim.
Right.
You want to be the one getting hit going, oh, they're attacking me, help me. And then people sympathize with you. So that's why I'm wondering, like, what would happen if New Hampshire said, we hereby secede, it's done. And the federal government says, no, you don't. And they say, don't care, not listening. Are they going to send in the feds, start collecting taxes or what?
Right. So I have been doing research on like nonviolent resistance, things like the civil rights struggle. And just to give an example of people, they had training back in the 60s where like when they would do a sit-in and they would train the people and say, okay, the mobs are going to come and start punching and screaming and spitting at you. Don't.
Okay. So the second part was about, like Jason was getting at, if we do this, would they actually come in and attack? When Donald, okay. All right, Mike, hold on. Would they actually do that? And I have to agree with Jason. I don't think that they would because the ports are here. The other thing is, let me put a little bit more of it because I think they're about to cover this real quick.
Swear at them and just sit there and take it. And then when you have taken too much, we rotate. So the guys on the inside they're making this propaganda effort to talk about how the right wing threat and all these, you know what I mean? Because they want the public to believe when they're kicking indoors.
Yep.
It's because there's all these right wing kooks who pose a threat.
I've always said that. So one of the reasons that I totally agree with him, one of the reasons that we have always made it about being corporate and peaceful and legal secession, and that we've had zero tolerance for anybody talking about forming a militia or let's get the army together, basically outside of the California government doing it, was for what he said. The moment movements take on the threat of violence or can be positioned or posited or made to seem as though that they're for that, you can go back to Max Weber, who invented basically modern sociology in America in the 1950s out of World War II. And he was talking about a hierarchy of needs. Well, order is the first one. And the formation of the state going back to the medieval times of 1400s was to provide order and safety. And so all of us, going back before there was an America and through all of our parents, everybody understands what's known as an unwritten social contract that the state has to provide order and security. So if you are seen as violent, then the state can ruthlessly crush you and destroy whatever it is that you're doing. And the public will not resist and not complain because they believe that's their job. And we are programmed to believe that. So the only way you can avoid that harsh vice of the government coming down is to make it very clear that you are in no way a threat physically. And that's why we've been devoted to nonviolent secession here, using ballot referendums, using the legal process, saying that we want states to vote and that we can't, and going out of our way to make sure that we can show that the votes are there. And people say, why don't you just declare independence? And I go, because this is where this goes. It goes that way. And you cannot go there or you're over. Silent Mike says, well, I don't know. There are a lot of conservatives talking about civil war, but, well,
usually when I heard Civil War stuff coming up in talks about independence for modern California, a lot of it was, do you think that would trigger a civil war? And that's where, again, I'm like, well, revert back, for question 2, revert back to answer 1. U.S. has 2 choices. They can unleash their vast array of chemical, biological, and nuclear weaponry, as well as their vastly superior military power. And, sure, they can cull off 11 or so % of the entire national populace and kill all of California if they so feel like it. The likelihood that they would do that is so minuscule, I would say it's next to zero.
Yeah. And that's what, if I can find the quote, I think it was, let me see if I can find that real quick. There was a guy called Danny Cevallos, and Danny Cevallos said that, nope. 1 second. I can't multitask worth anything. It's okay. So the computer doesn't work. So let me go to the phone. 1 second. Danny Cevallos. 1 second. Basically, there was a guy on CNN who said literally what Jason is saying. Yeah, here it is. And he was the political commentator for, let me just pull it up. Sorry, it takes a minute. It's because the search engine is not optimized here. There we go. Danny Cevallos is the legal analyst for MSNBC and NBC News. In 2016, speaking about the topic of Calexit, this is what he said. So hopefully you can see this, what history says about Calexit, Danny Cevallos, CNN legal analyst, and he's also a legal analyst for MSNBC. We were talking about yes, California is pursuing Calexit, and we want people to allow us to go. And what he literally says is that, yeah, here's yes, California. They are committed following the legal path to secession, according to Texas versus White, and we think they can get the majority. Texas versus White does not say that it has to be an amendment. That's his interpretation. However, he goes, what if California doesn't think that way and they just take off? And then he goes, basically, America would let it happen because unless California was saying we're an enemy state and we want to start harboring Chinese nuclear missiles or Al-Qaeda terrorists, then they're not really going to have a reason to threaten us. And especially if we keep the trade going, there's not really going to do that. And he was allowed.
To that point real quickly, I would just add that the likelihood of California harboring Chinese or North Korean or anyone else's nuclear missiles or becoming a terrorist state is about the same as the possibility of the United States unleashing all-out genocide against California.
Yeah. So it's probably not going to happen. What's interesting is, again, this is Tim Pool. These are other people. They have no contact with us. I mean, maybe they watch their videos. And they're saying, we have the right of self-determination. It's America signed a treaty and a law, and that's binding, and good luck trying to go against that if somebody said peacefully they're trying to do self-determination. And the idea of blowing up a state who's trying to leave because of the linkages we have with money is silly. We've been saying those two things for 5 years. And now someone else is saying them. So that's kind of a big thing. I mean, in our new format, that's fucking big. That's kind of a big fucking thing. I mean, that's pretty fuckity fuck big. We're trying a new format here, trying to experiment. That's why I'm wearing the tank top.
We got Mike popping some jokes in chat there.
Yeah. And I'm cursing. And because it's relaxed, and also because I am Mexican and racial profiling in California is real. And we still have problems. So I was literally dressed like this when I got pulled over by the cops for nothing. So we're getting better. Breaking.
Well, we know what it was for.
Yeah.
Driving while brown.
Driving. DOB.
In town while brown.
In town while brown, dog. Hold on. We got an update from Silent Mike. 1 second. This is breaking news coming to you directly from Silent Mike. Finland has just closed their borders. No one can cross the finish line. Yeah. Finland said, well, no, we're not even going to get into that. I don't want to get banned yet. We're not on Rumble. So we're going to go to Rumble where we can talk more freely, but it'll be something like this format, cursing jokes, high-level political analysis, but more fun.
Well, real quick on Finland, they solved homelessness.
As long as we're not talking about the topic we don't talk about. COVID-19. Don't say anything. Steer way clear of that. Then fine.
You could have just said current medical emergency.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, right.
But yeah, I feel it. Finland is very much forward thinking. They are a democracy. They really they rank number 1 in happiness, number 1 for child education. They also have solved the problem of homelessness within their national borders. People, I was set to go work over there as a head chef of a restaurant. Nice 3 Michelin star. People, it doesn't matter what you do. People over there make enough to live and not just barely scrape by and survive. I mean, like, you're just like anyone else. And it's not because everyone makes the same amount. It's because prices are relatively low and wages are actually really good.
Okay. I was getting it confused with Norway.
Norway just, they just had some recent political turnaround in a more democratic favor, should we say.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what?
It just happened just the other day, I believe.
Okay. All right. Let me see. I'm trying to find another particular video. So that's it. We wanted to make sure to highlight that this video here, I'm going to post it in the chat by Tim Pool and others, is talking about a lot of the same stuff that we talked about. So we're very pleased to have other people make similar comments to what we made, and it's just nice. It's nice to be able to look at others and go, yeah, we said the exact same thing. Yeah, Timcast IRL. Here you go. Here's the name of the episode. Here is a link to that for our members here, so you can follow along. And it's a good day because people are talking about that. I also did an interview recently with Mr. Jeffersonian. Let me see if I can find that somewhere. Whoops, that's not what I was looking for. That's not it either. Sorry, I did not queue up everything before the show. So I was working with a candidate to get him prepared for running for the 2022 election so that we can continue to expand our Yes California influence, and that
Oh, well, seems as if Marcus has reached a slight bit of connection issue. I guess as the only non-silent person left, I'll go ahead and take over the hosting for a second. I'm sure he.
Right.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Back to you, Marcus.
Here's this is another thing. I did a interview with Mr. Jeffersonian, and he posted this. So let me show that real quick. Jeffersonian tradition. So this is Mr. Jefferson, as we call him, talking about Yes, California, Calexit today. Let's see if any of that plays.
Hey everyone, Mr. Jeffersonian here. And I fully agree, had no authority to do that. That's actually highly illegal to an extent. You have a federal judge overturning state law from the bench. That was never supposed to be able to happen within this federalist system. So I do definitely agree with you there. That was actually a very jam-packed answer, and I appreciate that. I do have a couple of things, though. I want to ask some sub-questions.
Obama and George W. Bush stalled those deals and cost us billions of dollars. So it doesn't matter what party you're from. You're going to stall our deals and we don't get permission because you're not as connected to the international world as we are. And that goes back a century. I mean, the first international trade agreement America ever signed was because Californians pushed them to do it. I think it was William Randolph Hearst was one of the first, if we're going to get into that. The other thing is that we're a donor state. We donate more money to the federal system than we get out. This has gone on for 40 years. When you look at the fact that California has the highest taxes in America, it begins to make sense. You don't get to keep your money on yourself, so you have to raise taxes to pay for things. So we have to have high taxes because we're a donor state. A lot of people say, well, it's all because you're liberals and you don't know how to spend money. I'm sure there's some truth there. But we're talking about $100 billion. That's basically twice the budget. I know liberal excess and they do it, but it's not at that mark. We're looking at the hundreds of millions of dollars of excess for liberal policies, whereas we're losing hundreds of billions of dollars just being a donor state. It's markedly different, nowhere even close. That's donor state costs us money. We have to raise taxes. We had to raise this gas tax on ourselves. And the amount of money that tax raised was less than the amount we donated each year. So how about $100 extra billion in our budget, and we could eliminate state income taxes for all businesses and keep all our services? So a business climate where there's no taxes on businesses, maybe even wipe out the individual income tax here, but the total tax burden allows us to keep everything the same. I mean, we'd have so much more money and so many more services, and we could stop raising taxes on ourselves, and it's been this way for decades. So you gain money from international trade. You gain money from not being a donor state. Also, we're not as big on the military. We would probably have a military equivalent to Canada's or Israel. And Israel is a strong country. But even when you have a military as strong as Israel's, you have about $100 billion in savings from the amount California contributes now to the American military. That gives us universal single-payer healthcare, which is a dream here. So we get even all the services that we want that we can't get in America, and we keep all the services, and we could eliminate taxes. And when I talk to businesses saying, hey, would eliminating state income taxes be good or bad for you? They go, it'd be wildly great. And I go, hey, would California has regulations for everything the federal government does. If we got rid of the federal government, isn't that remove 50% of your regulatory overhead? And I go, is that bad or good for businesses? They go, that's wildly good. So no taxes, same services, no raising taxes on ourselves. Taxes go into normal. Businesses wildly thrive. And none of that gets to happen as long as we're part of the U.S. and won't happen until we secede. And then there's the laws that the American system keeps striking down. We're hardcore liberal out here. So we pass laws that we like. The most number of, we're part of the 9th Circuit Court. There's 12 circuit courts. They look at issues before they go to the Supreme Court. There's 2 circuit courts that have most of their laws struck down, and that's the one in D.C. because those are the laws coming directly out of the federal government, and they're getting reviewed. The next circuit court with the most number of laws struck down is here in California. What that means is that we pass laws and routinely our laws get struck down as unconstitutional. So we don't even get to have the laws that we want.
So I'll post that out to everybody. I thought that was relatively okay. Today I got gas for $2.19. Unfortunately, it was Taco Bell. Yes. So very, very good. Very good. Silent Mike says this. He has a good point. You can get gas a lot cheaper than buying it at the pump. Robert has to go. Okay, and let's go to another point by Silent Mike. This is highly relevant to the topic. Yeah, so good stuff. Anyways, that's the secession conversation that we had. Please take a look at that. We also had, that was a secession interview that I did. Came out at the same time as Tim Pool and others talking about the relevance of secession. And that all came out this week. I'll leave it there. Ha. So we'll wrap up in a few minutes. Last minute comments. What would like the people talked about?
Well, I would just like to say that I am paying attention very closely to Germany's recent elections. Seems that the Social Democrats have come out with the win, and they are going to do a coalition government, or at least they are actively seeking it from what they are saying, with the Greens up there at the top in the mix. And now, under Angela Merkel, Germany actually, not that long after Fukushima happened, Germany made the, nuclear-free pledge. They're phasing out. I'm not sure if they've already finished, but they had a very clear plan to get it all done very quickly, and not just beat around the bush about it or make some half effort. And they're going to decommission all their nuclear power plants, nuclear weaponry, NATO, yada yada. Right? It's unclear, but it's interesting that as Angela Merkel is stepping out and going to be taking some much deserved time off, the Greens are stepping up, and Annalena Baerbock, she seems like really, she's pretty awesome, it seems. And there was a lot of false campaign stuff targeting her, right? And now we look at the party that just barely lost by like 2.5% or something, and the head of theirs, and now that party is Angela Merkel's party, and we know Merkel to be really upstanding. But the dude who's the chancellor candidate, his name is Armin Laschet. He's like refusing to concede. He's saying that no one has a clear mandate. Basically, like, this election is not clear, right? And that he plans on forming a coalition government of his own. Who does this sound like?
Yeah,
So, it sounds like Germany has a bit of a Trump problem going on, in the wake of someone so awesome and powerful and smart and funny as Frau Merkel. So just, pay attention, keep tuned, and at the same time, cheer on the Greens for, the youth really turned out and strengthened the Social Democrat and Green parties over there. And over there, they're not just a two-party system. It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Yeah, most functional democracies have multi-party systems. America is called the winner-take-all system. It's not like most functional countries. Just like our healthcare and the military system. Interesting. Okay. We'll end it there. Thank you all. We're experimenting. We're getting closer. I know we haven't been pounding it out as hard as usual, but we really went hardcore with the recall election. We jumped in, made a lot of contacts, went very well. And we're winding back up. I'm pushing 44, so I need a little bit of effort to kind of get back, but we're getting back into the mode. Okay, we're coming back in. I think we did a lot. We had a lot of success and a lot of work, and we did it. I mean, we milked recall for everything. Very proud of us. Fuji, Jason, Mike, everybody jumping up different ideas. Yeah, okay, here, we'll take the dog joke down, okay, because it's over. There you go. But, we made a lot of inroads. It was great. And we're just kind of quietly winding back up. Yeah, no, Silent Mike was like, look, it's a joke. You don't leave it on for all day. I get it.
Yeah, and you didn't put up the one about the conspiracy theorists. I thought that was going to be a fitting one to leave up there for a little while.
Theorists. Oh, 3 conspiracy theorists. Okay. All right, here we go. That's pretty damn good. So this is Silent Mike, who apparently, he's not talking because you get punished for having political opinions here these days, but apparently Mike's a comedian. 3 conspiracy theorists walk into a bar at the exact same moment. You cannot tell me that's a fucking coincidence. That was my attempt at humor. We're going to have to keep working on it. Sorry, folks. So that was me trying to class up your joke and put some emphasis on it. And normally when I'm in a group of people, that would kill. I guess not. We'll find out.
No, he says perfect.
Really? Did you like the emphasis? Right? I tried to make it a little bit more spicy. That's what we do.
Maybe I can be Mike's voice. Hello.
Be Mike's voice. Channel him.
Oh, that's right.
I'm a legend.
Anonymity. My name is Michelle.
While Mike is terrified of being caught by the police state for his opinions, he is exceptionally humble. An exceptionally humble man. He just made a comment, bow before me. So that's me bowing. That's supposed to be funny. Haha, yes. So you're delivering the jokes. We appreciate it. Jason, take us out, brother, and then I'm going to I have to go buy a shit ton of weed before my mom gets home and says, what are you doing? You're a grown man. And go, don't hit me. I think I could take her, but she has this look in her eyes where you're just like, I'm not sure. Like I got like 150 pounds on her, but she has this look where you just, that crazy look, and you're just like, I'm not sure. Oh, that's not funny. I'm sorry. No discussing mothers here. And even in a respectful manner. All I was saying was I was terrified of her, so I guess that's not okay. Yeah. Anyways, I could take you, Mom. Fair fight. You're going down. Okay.
That's one way being an orphan is actually a little bit better.
Here, she's not here, so yeah, that's right.
Hey, I can make that joke. Booyah.
Yeah. Mic drop. No, he's still here. Anyways, okay. I'm going to the Wheelhouse, which is here in Oxnard, the Wheelhouse for all your cannabis dispensary needs. Wheelhouse! Oxnard. That's free. Mike can never leave. He is now one with the stream.
One with the hotel, California.
If you could just go, I'm sorry, Marcus, I can't do that. That was my favorite scene from a movie, that 2001. When they're like,
check out and
yeah.
you can never leave.
You can never, I'm sorry, I can't do that. They're like, what do you mean you can't do that? Little did they know that movie was a horror movie, 2001, about computers that don't do what you want, especially when you need it a certain way. And now we all live with iPhones. That
would you like me to sing you a song, Dave?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that was good. That was good. Did you just play a voice or was that real?
That was me.
Damn, dog. That's good. You nailed it right there.
I'm afraid I can't do that.
Wow, you're crushing it. Like, that's scary.
Wow. I know. I also do Pennywise.
Let's hear it.
But I'm not gonna. No.
No. Okay.
You don't want a balloony.
Yeah. All right. I have a few minutes to get to my medicine. Okay, before the medical store closes. I smoke. I just I can't buy it. They're like, don't call it cannabis. It's medicine. And I'm like, if you're really a quadriplegic or a paraplegic, or you have real PTSD, we've talked. Yeah, I hear you. But most people run around smoking. They're not on medicine. It's just recreation. Hey, I mean, if you really need it, go out there and get it. I'm just saying. Like, let's just be honest, right? I'm walking around going, I got glaucoma. I need it. I'm like, I don't fucking need it. I mean, come on, really? You know.
Yeah, no, I got PTSD, depression.
I'm going to out you, but yeah, here's what I'm talking about.
But yeah.
That's why I was
really
I was like, yeah. No, right. Mike says, no, go get prescription drugs. So you need to get off cannabis, okay? Because
I actually truth, man. I've tried many different prescription medications before I ever decided to go ahead and give cannabis a try. For the PTSD, man, it actually, like, if you get some good indica, not the super sativa stuff, but some good couch lock indica, the only thing you're going to find yourself attacking is bags of chips and cookies and casseroles and like pretty much like the real thing to worry about is eating yourself out of house and home at that point. Yeah.
And real talk, I've never heard of a man beating on his woman because he had too much weed to smoke. And especially in in Fresno and half my ethnic group, that happens all the time, and it's always someone drinking. Right? And they don't ban alcohol, but people get hurt because someone they care about drinks. I have never in my life witnessed a domestic dispute because, oh no, he smoked a joint and too much, dab hits, and now he's going and hitting his woman. It's like that doesn't happen. 50% of the police calls in Fresno County are domestic violence. So, and 40% of my family.
Really sad.
Yeah, 40% of my family got raped and beaten. So that never happened when people were just smoking weed. I'll leave it there. Think of it as you will.
Well, can we not leave it on a super sad? No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, here's the solution. Go get some prescription drugs because there's not, as we know, you cannot. Yeah, Mike's now upset with me. Mike's like, "Damn, dude, you just killed the mood." Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
you owe us all free tacos now, brother.
Everybody go to your doctor and get as many prescriptions as you can because you can't overdose on prescription drugs, and in no way can you abuse those sorts of drugs. So get off weed and go get a lot of prescription medication because there's not an opioid epidemic in America.
Don't you mean it the other way around?
Oh, damn. Did I get that? Jason,
Yeah,
thanks for calling me
the
out.
inverse of that.
Oh, my
There's a
dog.
massive opioid epidemic. Enough, they're giving
Call me
out
out.
free
Call me
drugs
out. Yeah.
in part of Canada. There's a place that someone who has like seen a massive amount of people overdosing, accidental overdosing through fentanyl being like in whatever that it wasn't supposed to have been in.
Yeah.
And like they go and acquire things at cost, test it, and then distribute it out for free, carefully packaged and whatnot. And like, you know, that way people who have addiction problems aren't just being left to die. And while, you know, it's hard to be like, yeah, go give out free drugs, it's also equally, if not harder, really, to be like, oh, just, you know, let them die. Like, come on now, I'm a human being. I have humanity left in my soul. And so, like, I can't really fault the people who do it, even though, you know, and they admit, like, they are technically breaking laws, and, you know, ultimately they're saving lives by doing it.
Good point.
So,
and high note.
Heartwarming.
Yeah. And here's another high note. Aaron McLean has subscribed. So we just picked up a subscriber doing our new version.
Oh,
hey,
welcome, Aaron McLean.
Yeah, and I want to say word up to my homie Leo Zaki. No, I don't agree with everything candidate Zaki says. That's silly. But you know, he's a real motherfucker. And he defies a lot of stereotypes they have about Republicans. And
yeah, you know, I heard Zaki, was he gonna run for some other position or something? Is he running for governor again, or
he's running for governor again? They're trying to tell him not to, but he's going to do it anyways. He's going to run again, and he wants to go like. And hey, like, I don't agree with everything he says, right? Okay, so whatever. But he's exploring his options. He's well known in that community. He went to the Republican convention. He was the only one to give like a floor speech or something that went over well. If you like Trump, which we have some Trump voters here who do, I don't like Trump, but whatever. He's well connected to some of them. At the same time, before you go off on the deep end, you know how I am, right? I ain't gonna fucking sell out. That motherfucker like was working at Zaki Farms, and he asked to do all of the jobs, and so they put him on the ground floor, chopping off chicken heads and shoveling guts and goop and feces and urine and everything, and shoveling it into things in like 100-degree heat. And I only started fucking with him after he said this to me. He goes, there was one time I was there and everybody's Mexican or African American except for him, and he comes in and they don't give him Gatorade anymore, and so everybody's like getting dehydrated. They're drinking water, but they're having trouble dealing with it, and they're getting dehydrated. And he basically goes to his family all the way up the chain and goes, why aren't we giving people Gatorade? And he got them Gatorade. And, he goes like, hey, people want a Gatorade, it's no big deal. And I go, no, dude. A lot of rich people do not give a fuck about the Mexicans working on their ground floor. And you actually stood right next to them, did the same job, and made sure they were treated fairly. Do you fucking understand how rare that is, and especially in the fucking Republican Party? Motherfuckers don't do that.
Yeah, and if I may, I'm not going to name any names, but sitting next to a fellow Green Party member, and during one of the debates, it was, I believe, the one where Mr. Zaki had appeared. It was the person I was sitting with. It was not made clear that he was Republican, right? And so they were like, "Wow, that Zaki guy, I could almost vote for him."
Brett,
I
motherfucking
was like,
Hello, how you guys doing?
shit, dog. What's up?
Not so much, not so much. I just got the email that you were having a meeting. I thought I would stick my head in and see what Calexit
That's
was up
exactly why we did this. I'm sorry, Jason, to cut you off, but like Brett's here. Hold on, we got to like kick it a little bit longer now. Let me come in.
for Marcus's
right.
cannabis appointment.
No. I can do this.
Get
Hold
delivery.
on.
Delivery.
back on the roll,
Are you
Marcus?
guys backwood in Fresno?
Fresno was.
Oh, you're echoing. Holy shit.
Hold on. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
I
you're
can,
still
but
echoing. I think you need to.
I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
I think you need to mute your computer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly correct.
Okay, there you go. So now we're on my
Unlike
crap.
the video. Yeah.
Well,
that's
this
because
is
you
on my
dropped
crappy
it, right?
phone. So I have to go get weed in the middle of our Calexit meeting where we're talking about the future of California. But Brett's here, so we got to talk to Brett. So Brett, did you watch the video? Because this is important. I suck at multitasking, like fucking. So Brett, like you saw the video where Tim Pool's talking about all our same talking points, right? He's like, "Hey, famous YouTube dude is Jason. Tell him what we saw, if you would."
So over the years, we've had certain talking points. People ask, well, secession, isn't that going to lead to civil war? We've had certain talking points around that piece of the topic, and that's basically that the U.S. does technically have the choice, but as long as we keep peaceful and legal, then we're kind of forcing their hand. The likelihood that they would actively choose to be monsters and be viewed as monsters by the entire world, and even Kim Jong-un could point the finger and be like, yeah, look, they're not good. I told you America was evil. Look at that. And, their actions would make someone like that actually be correct. Right? Something that's so unlikely to happen. America obviously unwilling to do that. 1 second. It's not Corona, I swear.
No COVID. No mentioning that.
Sorry. It's dust and pollen and stuff. I just fluffed a pillow.
Yeah, so Tim Pool, famous YouTuber, got to start with 9/11, basically talking about Texas and New Hampshire secession, and that you have the Texas legislature and the New Hampshire legislature doing something very significant where they're actually talking about secession.
Is that real?
That might have been the limit of the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You mentioned Kim Jong Un. I read something a while back that kind of stuck with me. There was this I can't remember who it was who said, but that China and North Korea were as close to one another as lips and teeth, which I thought was a very nice a metaphor. And there's obviously a conflict between. Well, there's some kind of tension between China and the U.S. But the reality is that China more or less funded the Afghanistan war. You know, for 20 years, we sold these T-bills to fund the war, and most of them got bought by China. They hold like $2 trillion in U.S. debt. So I don't know. I don't know if this it relates to the point that you're making, but China needs the U.S. to stay solvent in order to pay back all the money they lent us to fight this war in the Middle East.
Yeah, no, that is a very valid point. It's not quite exactly what I was getting at, but that is a really good point, especially since what we're seeing is America's getting ready for this like trillions of dollars package
For infrastructure?
Yeah, and the like budget reconciliation, raise the debt ceiling some more. And you know, so all of that war still needs to be paid for because it was bought up, parceled out, and bought up by China. And you know, China has their own beef with North Korea.
You know, I wonder about that.
Any countries that share borders usually have some sort of little bits of beef here and there, even if it's friendly beef.
Yeah.
What were you gonna?
It seems like it'd be hard to be happy with Kim Jong-un, you know, as your neighbor in any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like it must have been hard for Canada and Mexico having Trump as a neighbor.
Oh.
Do you think he's coming back? Do you think he's going to run again?
Of course, and I think, you know, I thought he was going to win his second term. I thought he was going to beat Biden by probably 1 or 2%. Turned out the other way. Woohoo! But immediately after that, he was sending out, you know, I've got friends who are Republican. I'm green, right? So I can talk to both red and blue. And I'm totally okay with it, right? Like, because I'm not sworn allegiance to anyone. Immediately after he got out of office, he started sending out letters to his fan base saying that he would be running in the next. Do not worry, he is going to run again. And he keeps updating those folks on, don't worry, I am going to run. The mainstream media has been playing around with the idea and trying to convince people not to panic and not to worry, right? Because, you know, they've got vested interest.
Sure.
They keep calling it a grift. And it's like, no, he's not grifting off of that. He's being legit, and they're being kind of dumb for not really taking it serious and kind of blowing it over. It means that should the Republicans win the majorities back in midterms, he is most likely back in for a second term. And it's all three of the federal controlled red majority. And so then what are we all looking at now? Some of us see it now because we're able to talk to people from all the different perspectives so that we can gather a true picture of what's going on rather than work off of some assumption. Yes, I know the dude's kind of a con man and a crook, and you know, he bankrupted a freaking casino. He's obviously not good at business.
Yeah.
But but I still pay attention to what he's doing because he's made himself important. Other people have invested enough into him to, you know, reinforce that importance on society now. And so if you want the
let me ask you
whole
something.
spectrum, you have to look at it.
Uh-huh. Are you from California?
Yeah, I'm born and raised California.
I see. I grew up. I feel like people who have lived most of their lives in California, like it's difficult to imagine why Trump is popular. And like I grew up in Georgia, for example, and I lived in Idaho for several years. And it's surprising, like the kind of resonance that he has with this large chunk of the American population. And you know, my take is that for him, it's just another reality show that actually, you know, pays less than the last reality show that he was doing. But a lot of people, you know, you could say that he's a con man, a grifter, all of these things that are a bad businessman. Those things are all true. But what he's saying, you know, resonates really strongly with, you know, at least 50 million people, almost all of whom live, you know, east of California. And so it's remarkable, like how, I don't know, the difference that there is between, you know, his base in Kansas and you know, Wyoming and Georgia and so on. So yeah, I don't know. I think he has a chance. You know, I think I think Hillary was never going to win because I think she's fine. I don't have a problem with her, but she motivates so many people who resonate strongly with Trump. They would have voted for anybody just to not let her into the Oval Office.
Yeah, well, and that's a very valid equal point there is how can we assume that just because he's going to run, whether or not the Dems totally bomb it in midterms, as even blue-leaning, blue-sworn mainstream media sources are even saying, rut-row, Ruby-roo, the Dems might need our help.
Yeah.
So, like, how can we know that Trump, okay, well, who's on the other side? Who is going to be propped up by the Democratic National Convention? They're incumbent. They always go with incumbent. If they have to get the guy in office and he's eligible for another term, it doesn't matter what age, what condition he's in, they're putting him back up. Or if something happens and he like absolutely can't, Kamala. They would prop up Kamala, who was surprisingly less popular than Hillary Clinton.
Chinga bendita.
She didn't even pull in 1% when polling in California.
Yeah, I wonder about that. If because I mean, Clinton made so many enemies in the 90s that I mean, I haven't seen the polling data, but you know, I know Kamala is not very popular, and but you know, she's a person who is, you know, I feel like
Una
a terrible
bendita.
person even saying this, but you know, she's
She's a sellout. Sorry. Keep going. I'm adding spice. That's what I do.
Sure. No, I agree with you. I mean, the thing that you're saying is close to the thing that I'm saying, that I'm want to say, which is that, you know, she's ethnic enough to appeal to a lot of liberals, but not so ethnic as to be scary to the base. You know, is that? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Well
that
said.
sounds vaguely racist just hearing myself say it, but
no, but you're right.
Kind of,
no, you're right.
There's a card that's being played there.
Yeah. She doesn't mind selling out people of any color. She's an equal opportunity player when it comes to selling people to the private prison system from the ripe old age of like 12 and 13. Some of those kids. You know, yeah, great person to put up as the vice president and then put them on handling the border situation with all these children. I wonder where these non-white children, I mean, not that it really matters with her because, hey, it's an unaccompanied minor. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Private prison system, here we come. Why do you think the Dems continued the whole article? Is it Article 42 or something like that? And they continue this policy of, you know, and it was Biden-Obama administration that started up the kids in cages that we have today. Trump-Pence, or Pence-Trump, upped it in certain ways. And then Harris-Biden comes in and says, yeah, we don't need to touch it. It's fine where it is. That's because they like the kids.
With regards to immigration, can somebody tell me what's happening with the Haitians these days? Like I saw that there was some photos in the news of some incident. I think it was in the Texas border. But I don't know. Is that like from the earthquake? Is there an exodus of Haitians who are seeking asylum now?
Well, so there wasn't just an earthquake. There was an earthquake, but before the earthquake was the assassination of their president in his own home. People claiming to be the United States DEA. Turns out there were people who had connections to varying United States agencies that utilize paramilitary sources in such places as Central and South America, you know, Asia. But before that, there was a current ongoing economic crisis that had been kind of unfolding. Things weren't looking good. They got really bad. Then they got even worse. And people fled. Some of the people that were at the border were supposedly, I guess I should say allegedly, because I don't know for certain. They say that some of them had actually fled Haiti some time ago. And that they were just, you know, in other countries. And they finally said, hey, there's this mass exodus going on up there.
Yeah, I mean,
America's supposed to be a much better place, right? A land of opportunity, where if you're willing to work and, you know, strike out and try and make your life, you might be able to. Because that's what America used to represent.
Yeah,
but you know,
I think it's kind of easier
down.
to walk into Mexico than to, you know, go across the water. You know, I mean, just the border is so big, you can't. It's not possible to close it. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, if they were fortunate enough to have something like the Sierra Nevada mountain range pretty much covering one whole side, so that like yeah, you are going to have to cross some very steep scraggly mountains and very wild lands. And if you make it over onto the other side, we've probably known you were coming for days and just wait until you get somewhere much easier to pick you up.
Yeah, I think,
we're lazy.
Is Marcus in the loop?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm back. I don't know what happened. I'm in Camarillo. The reception's horrible. Silent Mike says Jason should check his PMs. I don't know what that means, but he wanted me to tell you. So I'm still here. Jason, you still here? Brett?
Yes.
So, yeah, Brett,
Yeah.
there's some Haitian migrants at the border in Texas. From what I understand, they allowed a few of them in, and then the Haitians told everybody else, come on in. And then even though Joe Biden and Kamala Harris literally said while running for office that they would not turn people away, they have now turned people away. So they did the total opposite of what they said they were doing.
Yeah, so the actions that they've taken since the famous, now infamous pictures of either that was border ranger or it was a Texas state ranger or something. I don't know. I didn't look. What I saw was not clearly identifiable enough as to who exactly this person worked for on horseback. But whoever it was doing some stuff that, like, we can all agree, right? You don't even treat animals like that. Like, treating animals like that is frowned upon. So what do you think treating a human like that is going to be like? What response do you think that should invoke, right? Something even more furious than when someone's kicking puppies, when they're whipping, children and people seeking refuge and asylum. The actions taken since then have been to mass deport pretty much anyone that is not an unaccompanied minor. They've already done it. They did it in 72 hours, within 72 hours. And unaccompanied minors were taken to a secured facility, meaning kids in cages. Basically, all of the children that no one really cares about, we'll just kidnap them and put them into the private prison system and use them as commodities and make money, generate revenue, and have them labor for us to generate even more revenue while also cutting costs. It's a win-win-win-win-win called maximizing profits. And that's what they do and why. And it seems pretty clear that they basically just kidnapped the kids that no one was there to care about. And, the kids have no one to care about them. And everyone else got sent back. The people who were seeking political asylum, who weren't supposed to be turned back, they were sent back, put on planes. They put them on private aircraft and flew them back, spending tons of money, right? They could have just made maybe a huge modern, encampment area that's not a third world wasteland, but actually more like, when refugees show up places in other countries during like times of great upheaval. You know, modern countries will put them into a very large kind of town-sized area, and everyone gets these like huge family-sized tents that, like, you can stand up in it, and you know, whole family can be in there, and you know, it's basically your temporary living quarters, and everyone slowly gets processed and things get checked out, right? And gradually the people that are there start to slowly go out.
All right, wish me luck, guys. We're going in.
Oh, I don't know if you're supposed to legally film inside.
I'm not filming, but they're going to hear.
Well, I would say maybe turn off your video and audio. Like, you don't want. I'm just saying, you know, because it's technically still you're live broadcasting right now, so any sort of recorded audio or video, photographic, anything, it could. Okay, well, I am sure he will be back, but I am still here for you folks who are watching. Not sure who all is still watching, but yeah, so people seeking asylum who were actually interviewed and made statements, that more than one made statements that they will be killed for political reasons if they go back. Everyone that was not an unaccompanied minor was sent back, and all unaccompanied minors went into a holding facility, a secure holding facility, which just means kids in cages. Yeah, this is what the right and the left are both doing. It doesn't matter which side of the coin, which wing of the bird. I think it should have been a turkey. I know Ben Franklin thought it was noble. It was a noble bird. They are vicious. They are cruel. They are quite tasty when you cook them up and you rip them apart and you eat them. But they are not really pleasant to be around. They are not pleasant creatures. I think that is much more fitting to the America that has evolved. That's one huge difference that I see between California as a society of Californians and America at large. Not saying all of the, because a lot of states, you know, Hawaii is very much its own, Alaska is very much its own, Oregon and Washington, it's hard to tell if they didn't mark that border, you know, it'd be pretty hard to tell where one starts and, you know, the other ends. They have kind of an even different culture from what we have, even throughout the northernmost part of California. There are some similarities, but even some of the more rural stuff, I love that word, some of the more rural spaces of California have still a lot of different from Oregon and Washington. Not to say any one is better or worse than the other, just different. And, you know, Texas, obviously, you know, Texas is kind of the epicenter of a lot of the border problems. And I see that they want to secede. They've talked about it for a long time, right? There's been this kind of a dance that's gone on for generations. It's part of Texas culture. They have their own culture. It's like, yeah, they're Americans, but they're from Texas, right? Like, I've seen videos of people traveling abroad. Like, oh, where are you from? I'm from Texas. Like, doesn't say I'm from America, right? I'm from Texas. People from like Georgia, South Carolina, right? They say they're from America. And if someone asks further, they say, well, I'm from Georgia or South Carolina, right? Some folks I know from Georgia have known that there is a country called Georgia, and have said, well, the state of Georgia, not the country. To which I always laugh because very very few Georgians have I actually met in my life, partly because I've never been over there. They, not saying they don't get around much, just they seem to just kind of do their thing in their land, and kind of the way I see California would be world commerce and whatnot. But most Californians, we kind of stay in California, not because we don't like anywhere else. We'll go and visit, but even when things are bad here, we still come back. Speaking of coming back, I'm wondering how long this is going to take Marcus to come back. Am I the host? I don't think I am. We are still rolling. So, I guess it's philosophy hour with Jay now. Mr. Wright. As I spark up some tobacco and see, tons of California, no smoking. We got the no smoking in restaurants. We're looking out for our waitresses and cooks and whatnot, restaurant staff, bar staff. The places would get so ungodly smoky, and it's not healthy. I mean, not that smoking cigarettes is healthy for you, but there would be people working at bars who weren't smokers who would end up smoking as much as half of the town, because the place is just constantly, yeah, right. Sounds terrible. I can picture anyone listening right now, all 500,000 of you nodding your head. Yes, and now you're looking around saying, 500,000. What's this guy on? Oh, California, smoking that ganja. So anyway, back away from the medical cannabis, and back to the point, is that California is very much different. Texas, very much different, right? There are places that are very much their own in both their society and culture, one of which is us here in California. One of the things about California is we don't like a lot of this border stuff. We have a different idea of how to handle stuff with immigration and border policies and all of that, right? Not saying open border, not saying no border, just saying, sensible, reasonable, humane, definitely not inhumane. Most of California and most of the world that has seen those photographs and such now is on the same page with that. It's like, treat people in a humane way or you're just a monster. So, California, I would like to point out, has nearly 40 million people, million with an M. So, that is roughly 11 or so percent of the entire United States population. Now, if the majority of California, or the majority of that 11% or so, is what's really pushing America to be so, I guess, stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? You got one side saying, close that border, wall it off, put barbed wire and razor wire and no minefields and, some anti-tank laser guided missiles and whatnot. A couple of aircraft carriers in the area wouldn't hurt. We've got one side on that end, and we've got the other side on the, little less of the California-based humanitarian stuff and a little more of the, just kind of good old-fashioned, doesn't America stand for? Come and give us your sick and tired and hungry and poor and weak and all of that. I mean, should we really be turning people away? Especially just like blindly turning people away. Kind of seems against what America's supposed to be about. But if we are providing a lot of the juxtaposition in our societal outlook and outcry, enough so that it's making this impossible choice appear, split down the middle, it might be beneficial not just for us, but for everyone. Those who want their border security in Texas, well, you know what? When Texas goes off on their own, what do you think Texas is going to do with its border? It's going to have a laser-guided missile minefield of death and doom. When California breaks off, we're probably not going to, one, need to wall off our borders, but two, even want to wall off our borders. One, because we've got natural mountain range that's, take it from someone who's backpacked it very, very thoroughly, stretch by stretch. It is not easy going. It is not for the faint of heart. And it's not for, some parts are beginner friendly. Other parts are not. They are very much not friendly for even intermediate. And that's coming from an intermediate stance, right? Like, I hit some places that I had to say, oh, ye who walk away just might live to see another day. And when you're up in the Sierras, every sunrise is beautiful. Every sunset, beautiful. You can also see the stars, and it's amazing. So there's definitely loads of incentive to not go the insanity trail. And that's kind of a fitting hyperbole for the way California likes to deal with things. No going down the insanity trail. We don't need to wall everything off and put, automated laser-guided missile turrets all over and have sharks with laser beams floating around in the ocean. We don't need a fleet of nuclear missile-armed submarines going around the world threatening everyone to just ensure that no one messes with California. I mean, those of us who know economics and understand California economics and our agricultural production and where it stands on the world level, we know California, being the way that California is as an agricultural entity, is actually one of the things that keeps this very heavily populated planet from having just some really nightmarish apocalyptic situations going down. Because, when food shortage is a thing, wars pop up for more lands, and, genocides happen, and things get really sad, really dark, really ugly, really fast. So, California producing what it does produce on the world market actually helps somewhat, in a part, to alleviate a bit of pressure. But if California was independent and could set its own prices and mandate who it can and cannot trade with all by its own self, then we would actually be producing a vast amount greater, an exponential amount greater onto the world scene than what we currently do and what we have been for some time. That might actually alleviate a lot of extra pressure all around the world. And with the way that things have been going just the last 2.5 years, and that's all I'll say about it, because that seemed maybe too close to saying it. Food scarcities, food shortages, look at Lebanon. Total collapse of Lebanon. Lebanon was, going through some hardcore economic crisis before the port of Beirut exploded, and yet another horrifically saddening, mortifying kind of a scene. But their country was hard up before that. And then that happened. Their kind of major port in their major city going up like that. The government, stepped down, a new government stepped in. Things kind of stopped, ground to a halt, stagnated, and kind of sat there ever since. Food scarcity, but also all around economic scarcity and hardship. And that's actually made things even worse. Now, when you look at places like Haiti, Lebanon, look at Ethiopia, you've got the Afar region, where one of my very good friends is from and at. You've got the Tigray right next door. Both are claiming, well, we're a little bit different from, the major Ethiopia as you know it. Kind of like how we, California, Texas, Hawaii, Alaska, New Hampshire, a few others say, we're a bit different from the overall America that you might know. There are places like this that it's going off, both in cultural and societal independence, self-determination, but also it's going off as in their unions, their societal unions have been crumbling. And there are vast swaths of people who are not being taken care of by their government. And, you know, sure, they may feel that they are not being taken care of adequately by their government. But, you know, when it's an entire region of people and they are all collectively saying it, I think there's no room for denial that the people are not being adequately cared for, right? And now with California, enough Californians have left, enough California businesses, big and small, have left because things are bad here. The taxes are way too high because the federal government tells us we can only make so much, and then also taxes us pretty much every last bit that they can. Oh, you have 2 extra pennies? Well, you mean I have 2 extra pennies? Your bills are paid, right? Okay, yeah. You know, I know what your bills are. You need $1,600 for this, and you know, $3,800 for that, and you know, once all your stuff's totaled up, you only need X amount. So anything above that, I am going to take the majority of it. That's kind of highway robbery. I mean, in a sense. Real highway robbery would be a bit different. Like, you know, if one entity is charging us an extra bit to pay our taxes, right? Oh, yes, you send us the money. That's the way to do it. And then we pay. Therefore, we have to have our service fee. Just saying. That would theoretically, hypothetically, allegedly, supposedly, in my view, be something potentially kind of like highway robbery. So now that I'm speaking of highway robbery, I'm wondering if Marcus didn't get a little highway robbery case of his own. Stopped in at the cannabis shop, and now he is nowhere to be found. I have been talking to you all for a little bit. I am going to check. I have no messages from him. So I guess maybe I shouldn't just leave it on highway robbery. Maybe I should go into a couple of the good points, good sides of things, right? So as all of this darkness and despair and strife and upheaval of society and societal workings and governance and, you know, maybe even national borders here and there potentially, as all of that's going on, there is something actually really beautiful in it all that a lot of people miss. And that is the right to self-determination is a human right. And modern nations, at least anyone who is part of the United Nations, they find it insanely hard to find ways to justify stomping out the right of self-determination because it is an agreed upon fundamental human right. So we have cases around the world, Hong Kong, we've got Papua New Guinea, we've got Fiji, we've got Cape Town in South Africa, the Cape region. We've got Artsakh, Armenia, or just outside of Armenia, an enclave of the Armenian people. We've got, Texas, Hawaii, but Puerto Rico also. We recently started talking about, is there still a movement in Puerto Rico for, reestablishment of sovereignty? Well, just a week or two ago, we came across some stuff showing very clearly there is still a movement, and it is still strong. There are many people that were out there very clearly in support of independence. So, as someone who has always supported Puerto Rico's right, I feel like I should even stop saying, hey, give Puerto Rico our star. Let us go, and, Puerto Rico can have it. It seems like more and more, especially lately, as people are coming to the realization that the left wing and the right wing, the blue wing and the red wing, are both parts of the same vulture. And what we're really looking for is like real freedom, what you think about when you envision a bald eagle flying majestically over that crystal clear mountain lake with the wind just whispering through the pine. All of that commercial fluff stuff. What we want is the reality of that. More and more of us are realizing now. It's a vulture that was what we got. They're gnarly, carrion-eating birds. They're quite smelly. They're also not very easy on the eyes. I guess I could say, without image shaming these very large, seemingly death-related birds. Who knows? Maybe the Greeks had it right, and like they're the servants of death or something. Was that the Greeks? I forget. Someone says they're the servants of death, right? The varying animals that are always associated with corpses. I think a lot of that's just old world. People used to die everywhere. Plagues and stuff. We don't have plagues and upheavals of governments and like nations swallowing up other. Oh wait, no, we really do. Cool. Well, it's not like we have massive cataclysmic, volcanic events going on. Oh wait, no, we do. It's not like there's like, any potentially world altering radioactive substances being let loose into our, open water systems. Oh wait, no, we do. Maybe that apocalyptic novel isn't so far away. But I'm not going to leave it on a bad note. People have the right to self-determination. We can try to fix things, but not if we're all going to just take our places under varying boots. We need to, as our own societal entities, take things to the next level and really, really get with the time. Modernize, right? One of those great great talking points of mine. Modernize California. Modernize the Green Party. Modernize California. Because most everything is freaking out of date. I mean, you look at the way electronics are made. It was true, 20 years ago. True now. You buy something, some electronic device, a computer, smartphone, whatever. You buy something electronic, and it's out of date by the time you get it home. Bust out of its packaging. So we need to modernize. Part of the thing that's going to help with is all of this disposable lifestyle, this convenience-based lifestyle. It's hopefully, there are many countries that have started taking that turn. California has been on that kind of a kick through our general society for a little while now. But we could really do something to implement certain things on a wide scale societal measure if it was California as a nation. Nationally, California does this, right, to protect our environment and, hopefully waste less, hopefully pollute less. We banned plastic straws because enough people saw that video about a sea turtle getting that straw pulled out. That was brutal too. Heart crushing and brutal. And I'm not a vegan. I'm not vegetarian. I eat me some animal, but I'm also not for cruelty. And I don't plan on eating a sea turtle. That's why I don't ever plan on hunting a sea turtle. Why I also don't really sit well with the image of a sea turtle coming to harm. I know, some folks can call me bleeding heart or whatever. I think it's just a more sensible approach, really. Not saying that because I would eat an elk, I would like to see an elk come to harm or like to see, people hunting elk and killing them. But, if I was going to eat an elk, I would prefer to hunt it myself, and I would prefer to, have to actually, I guess, be there in this moment with this fellow creature that I am about to consume to sustain my life. I mean, don't forget, people, even if you're vegetarian, if all you eat is plants are still living things too. They don't speak to you and whatnot, and they don't make, vocal sounds that you can hear. It doesn't mean they're not a living organism. It's pretty much exclusively consuming that kind of living organism. It's like if someone's strictly carnivore. Let's go sensible, reasonable. Let's not lay waste to any one thing. Let's actually take it upon ourselves to consume a little more consciously. It's the principle of why they had proposed to make the procedure for the launch of nuclear arms here in America at one point in time in history. There was a proposal to make it so that procedure made it fall down so that after everything is said and done, if it is time to push that red button, the person who actually has to push it is the president, the person giving the command. And the counter to it was, well, then, you can't do that because, then no president is ever going to use the nuke ever, even if they need to, because they will know that with this button push, they are ending the lives of so many people very actively, right? They are the one pulling the trigger, which is why it was proposed, to prevent people from wanting to use nuclear weapons. Yes, I know what will make someone think twice about shooting all of the deer in the forest. If they have to actually be the one to go out and trek through there and have to hunt down every single one, at a certain point, it's either futile or they've like died of exhaustion, because there's no way you can do that all yourself, right? Okay, so you nuke the forest to get rid of all the, fine, but you, Mr. Hunter enthusiast, who somehow decided upon thermonuclear means to go hunting, fine, you've got your thermonuclear hunter's permit. All you have to do is hit this red button and exterminate all that life forever. The person, you go and do it one by one, right? You go the army, and you send in the army and send in some fighters to do some advanced bombing. Then you send in your forces, the army, the foot soldiers, the tanks, all of the support units. It's a lot easier to look away from, because it's not one immediate insanity. It's an unfolding insanity that usually takes something like 20 years, right? Only when a war really goes quickly are things clear that someone is a monster somewhere on one side. You got people throwing rocks on one side, and you've got like a jet fighter running sorties preparing to drop an atomic bomb on the other side. That's kind of atrocious. Wonder who the bad guy is there. Doesn't take a rocket scientist, or a nuclear physicist to figure it out. The oppressor is always the bad guy. Whether the bad guy wins or loses is a totally different story. If you watch the movies, the good guy always wins, almost. If you look at real life, unfortunately, all too often, the bad guy wins. And it's not because the bad guy, pops up with the face and mustache of Adolf Hitler, right, and tells you everything he's going to do. Because he puts on a friendly face and a nice suit and tie, and he combs his hair just right. And he says the things you like to hear, called pandering. Because ultimately, once you vote someone into power, they're in power. You voted them into the highest position of power. Who has the power? They have the power now, because you put them there. This is why it's imperative that, one, we actively participate in our democracy, our society, but also, two, that we really make certain for ourselves that the decision that we make is the right, accurate decision. Now, I do know plenty of people all across the spectrum politically. So I know some folks who, yes, Trump lines up with their values and what they like and what they want to hit almost perfectly. I know other folks who may be Republican, but didn't really like Trump and didn't really line up with their values, but he's part of the party and he's the party nominee, so you have to vote for him. Now, I would say the first example where they voted for Trump was actually a sound vote because Trump resonated with them as a voter. Whereas the person blindly voting based on their party was not a sound vote. I mean, sure, it's a legitimate, valid vote, whatever, but it's not made with rationale. It's not made with the type of clarity of thinking that says, this person, this voter is thinking about how this next 4 years will be and what it will do for the next 4 years. Because a lot of us forget that's, all of the spending stuff comes up now with all of the, they've got to pay for all of these extra spending with the massive, massive tax cuts for the uber wealthy. I mean, dude, if you have $1 trillion, you can afford to pay $100 million in taxes. That's literally like paying 1 penny on your dollar. If that. It's like paying 1 penny on your $10 bill. and that's $100 million. Oh my goodness. We're talking, an entire state going through a massive crisis, like a hurricane just ripped through there and there's massive flooding and loss of life. Entire towns have been destroyed. Well, guess what? A lot of the immediate need could have been covered by something like that. No. We're going to do away with the funding we need while also spend more. So yes, now that it's time to balance the checkbook, guess what time it is? Time to balance the checkbook. It happens. But, to an extent, I do have to say, economically speaking, United States dollars inflated 150% since, or thereabout, since I was born in 1986. If they continue to raise the debt ceiling, print more money, there are less jobs being taken up, and thereby, more government subsidy has to go out while less tax revenue and overall economic revenue is being generated, right? Well, guess what they're going to have to do? They're going to have to print more money. But printing more money devalues the dollar, inflates it. That means that when, the country that owns, the $2 trillion worth of Afghanistan war debt, when they say 2 trillion, it was 2 trillion of then. So now that it's inflating more, you're going to need to come up with more than that $2 trillion to pay that debt. Basically, the debt just gets bigger, it's more massive, because ultimately you're taking a whole dollar and you're ripping it into pieces to try to fill the hole. So, a little food for thought, folks. This is the way America's been going for longer than I've been alive, really. It seems like the way that it's going to keep going. We saw it through the last boss. We're seeing it again through this new boss. New boss, the same as the old boss. So I think that's really a good place to tie it up. Our little, yes, I am the guy that came up with it. Trump, another shade of Biden, or Biden, another shade of Trump. Really, Biden was VP before Trump was the big P. So, just saying, Trump was really just ramping up things that Biden had done. And Biden came in after, as equal level of that authority. Could have overridden, could have undermined that, could have changed things. Said, nope, I think it's fine. Only after a lot of pressure, which, again, I will say in my whole summation here, California is like, 11% or so of the United States population. So you can imagine where at least a large chunk of America's outcry is that you can't do that, you need to change it, came from. Basically, California is forcing most of America to get with our beliefs. While at the same time, there are places in America that are trying to pass and have passed varying pieces of legislation that are actually mandating that other states be subject to their law and their way. So, and this is what led to the Civil War. This is how the Civil War started. It didn't actually start over really, someone said, you can't have slaves. Slavery is bad now. And the other person said, no, I want my slaves. We're going to war. It wasn't like that. There was actually a piece of legislation that was passed that mandated that these non-slavery states where people were escaping from these horrific conditions, where they were being held against their will and, well, for the slightly less graphic summation, I'll just say they were subject to, generations were subject to horrific things that I dare not speak of on a live recording. That's how bad things were. And so people who were escaping from that up to places that weren't like that, didn't subject people to that. Well, now these places are being subject to the laws of the place that did that to those people. And that law says very clearly that that new place that's a harbor for them has to help to round those people up and bring them back down, or else they are complicit in crime. Basically, oh, you don't like slavery? Well, you have to partake in it, or else you're a criminal. So that's how it all started. It's already hit that point as far as legislation enacted, and we saw what's being called the Texas abortion ban. It was passed. It was upheld by the Supreme Court. It's oh my goodness. It seems pretty darn set in stone now. It's gonna be hard to find a way to undo that one, right? I don't know if you can, really. So if you're part of that, chunk of America that does not like these sorts of things, that, is feeling that they are now going to be subject to, or else, you may want to think about self-determination / independence / autonomy, autonomous choice, autonomous freedom, right? It's just freedom, independence. Yes, independence from America. But you know, before America was America, they were 13 colonies under the British Crown. And they went and did all this all together and said, screw you. And they didn't do legal peaceful. They did it outright. Like, you know, this is war. They won. And thus we have America. But anyone who says that this is, you know, somehow un-American, you really couldn't get more American than this. This is something that the founding fathers themselves did. They did this exact thing themselves, and not in a legal and peaceful manner. It was a very, very violent, bloody upheaval. So, being different is okay. Being yourself is okay. As Californians, we have that right to be ourselves and to be okay with it. Some of us are on the right, some of us are on the left, some of us, like myself, are in the middle with the green. Our main concern isn't, you know, the color of your party, just like it's not the color of your skin. It's, are you a decent human being? And do you not want a nuclear apocalypse wasteland to have to live in? Do you not want your children having like 20 eyes and 6 arms and, you know, 12 legs and one scaly half wing growing out their back, you know? All them weird freak mutations that you could possibly get with nuclear wasteland. So, you know, food for thought. Anyway, I am going to sign off because it seems like Marcus is not coming back. So I have been your finishing host for tonight, Jason Wright, otherwise known as Von Schrader. To European folk, they might know the family name. I throw it out there. Bay Area Regional Coordinator for Yes California. Also getting into political field work, campaign manager for a candidate running for District 6 in San Francisco coming up. Advisor on more than one campaign of varying levels, some even for governor of California. So anyone who wishes to contact me, post something in the comments on the video, tell Marcus to send me your email, and Marcus will put us in touch. So thank you for tuning in. Wherever you are, whoever you are, please stay safe.